I'd like to call the special school board meeting of July 20th, 2017 to order. Sarah, would you call the roll, please?
Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am.
Ballard. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Haas.
Here.
Romansky. Here. Tucker. Here. And Swanson.
Good evening. I'm going to turn the floor directly over to our
Master
HR
of
Director and
Ceremonies.
Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Gray.
Hi, welcome to our superintendent interviews. So tonight, the school board is going to ask a series of questions. They'll be the same for both candidates. There'll be 14 questions. Hope to complete the interview, in an hour or plus or minus in terms of doing that. Candidate over there is Gary Anger, and Gary, this is the board, and I think they're going to introduce themselves to you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Let's start with Mary?
Yep.
Or Kevin?
Or do we want to go around to introductions first?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Kevin Jerkin?
Good to see you again, Kevin.
You too.
Mary Romansky.
Very nice to meet you, Mary.
Matt McKeon, nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you too, Matt.
Welcome, Angela Tucker.
Hi, Angela. Great to meet you.
Hi, Gary. Scott Swanson.
Scott.
Hi, Gary. I'm Sean Hallett. It's great to meet you.
Very good to meet you, Sean. Thank you.
Gary, I'm Tony Poss.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Gary. Reggie Garman. It's nice to have you here.
Reggie, thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.
Mary, would you like to kick us off?
Well, let's start with questions.
Sure.
Okay. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, again, my name is Gary Anger, and I'm a lifelong educator. So I've been blessed to have the last name Anger my entire career. So if you're not a nice guy and your name is Anger, things aren't going to work out for you very well. But, I grew up in East Bloomington, so not too far from here in the shadows of the old Met Stadium. And my first job was as a vendor, selling popcorn and hot dogs and things at the Met. My father was a career military man, Sergeant Major Charles Anger, passed away 2 years ago, and was just an incredible guy and a pillar in our community and definitely my life role model. My mother, her name's Katerina Madalena Passerine, is her maiden name. My father met her when he was stationed in Italy, and so she still speaks with an incredibly thick accent and lives in Bloomington. So, and I've got two brothers that I grew up with. I went to Mankato for my undergrad and in elementary education, and had a ball as an elementary school teacher, taught just about everything and coached and did everything that you do when you're a young teacher. Met an amazing lady right over there, Lori Anger. I brought my wife along tonight, and who is also an educator. She's a kindergarten teacher in Apple Valley. And so she stood right by me when I got my master's right away, and then I reciprocated while she got her master's, but got into school administration pretty early and was a dean of students in Bloomington at an intermediate school, 5th and 6th grade building, 1,700 kids, and then went to Cottage Grove in South Washington County as a principal at Gray Cloud Elementary School for 4 years, and then was a principal at Red Pine Elementary School in Eagan. During that time at Red Pine, I was very involved in all sorts of different professional learning and was hired by St. Mary's University to be an adjunct professor, in which I did numerous facets of leadership, including helping people get into the principalship and other administrative ventures, and also all sorts of different leadership classes and growth classes, strategic planning classes, worked with many different districts, helping them with strategic planning, and learned just a ton. I probably learned just as much as any of my students. And then a couple years ago, a great opportunity came forward to become the superintendent in Zumbrota-Mazeppa School District. It's a growing school district just north of Rochester, which we almost call a suburb of Rochester now. It's growing so fast, and have just absolutely had a ball. But I'm so honored to be here with all of you today and to have a chance to speak about this opportunity. And I'll refer to the fact that when I got my job in ZM, it very much mirrored what's going on here in Shakopee right now. And so I feel like that has prepared me like no other preparation could occur for any other candidate to really help this district become the district you and I want it to be.
Well, that's a nice segue. What do you believe to be the top 3 issues or challenges facing Shakopee Public Schools?
Matt, first and foremost, it's culture. I feel like culture eats practice for breakfast, and that's stealing a quote from Anthony Muhammad, one of my favorite educational researchers and scholars. I feel like this is an amazing district, and that there are incredible things going on. And as a matter of fact, I've been creeping on you guys for the last 2 years and trying to initiate some things at our high school level that are much like the academy model that you've got going on. But our district is so small, we had to team up with Pine Island next to us and write an innovation grant to get some of those things going. So really, first and foremost, it's culture, and that's my strength. That's what I work on and excel at, and I'll pass out a document that you can look at your leisure that is a presentation that I did years ago at MESPA, and I've done several times since. That's all about getting your staff on board. Kevin, do you mind being my runner tonight? Thank you very much. He has seen this already today, and so it's really important to have positive culture, because you can have the best initiative in the world, but it's not going to succeed unless you've got positive culture in place. The second big issue is what I'm going to call cleaning the windows here. Obviously, many things have happened in Shakopee, especially in recent times, and I'm going to explain cleaning windows with a real brief story that is stolen from Father Tim Wozniak, a real good friend of ours. But there was a man that would go to his window in his house every day, and I'll try not to be too wordy with other questions, but this is so important. He would go to his window and he would say to his wife, that dang neighbor, he hangs laundry out there every single day, and it's not clean. There are these beautiful sheets, but they've got things all over them. What is the deal? And he would do this day after day after day. And finally, he goes to the window and he goes, son of a gun, that knucklehead finally put some clean laundry up there. And his wife looked over to him and said, no, I just cleaned the window. And so that's something that needs to occur here in Shakopee. We need people to be able to see the great things that are going on. We need to, clean the windows of a lack of trust, clean the windows of the culture issues that have occurred, clean the windows of financial errors that have happened in the past, and errors in leadership, specifically at the top, so that people can see this great community, they can see the incredible schools, the innovative, talented teachers that we have in this district, and the opportunities that are here. So it's cleaning the windows is something that really needs to happen. And then lastly, it's facilitating all the initiatives that are going on so that they're successful. And like I mentioned, you can have the best ideas in the world, but they're not going to succeed unless you've got these other things in place. And I had alluded to it before, but it's exactly what happened when I got into Zumbrota Mazeppa. And you can obviously do research on this and ask anybody that's there or anything, but it was a district in disarray with a broken culture, with some major leadership errors that had occurred before I got there, with a budget that was basically nil. And I'm so proud to say, in a span of 2 years, that all of those things have turned around. People believe in themselves and think that they are working in the best darn district in Minnesota. And I'm really, really proud of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, what do you hope to accomplish during your first 90 days of employment?
Angela, my goal in my first 90 days is to have everybody look at the superintendent of this district and say, you know what, this is somebody we can stand behind. He's actually come out, shook my hand, walked into my classroom, attended our football game. He's gone to our community ed class. He's walked into an early childhood classroom, and he's recognized us. And I really feel like he's going to listen. And so my goal in the first 90 days, Angela, is to turn that around immediately. And that was what I had to do in Zumbrota Mazeppa too. I feel if you talk to Pete Heinrich, who was the board chair there that was instrumental in hiring me there, he would say that that's what Gary did. right from the get-go in ZM. He got out there, we couldn't believe everywhere he was, and right away, people started thinking, wow, this is different. And that's what we need to happen here. We need people to know that the new superintendent in this district is not just saying that these are the things that we need to do, but he's modeling it. And a smile goes a long way, a handshake goes a long way. A kid coming up and giving a hug during a parade, which Lori and I got mauled during the parades as we were handing out pencils in Zambroda and Mazeppa, and I'd have grandparents looking at me kind of weird, and I'd say, it's okay, I'm the superintendent. And so that's what I want to happen right away.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Gary, tell us about how you've educated yourself in the Academy's model that's currently in motion for our high school, and share your anticipated approach to ensuring its success.
Yeah, well, Scott, like I said, I have been a huge Academies fan, and I've been studying it very deeply. As a matter of fact, I went to, this folder may look a little beaten. Oh, Ashley, sorry about that on the mic. I'll be careful. Because I went to a presentation put on by the Shakopee schools, and you know, all my information on the Academies has been there, and I was so taken by the approach. I talked to Tammy, the superintendent at Pine Island. I said, we need to do something like this. So really the success of that lies in another document that I'm going to pass around to all of you here, and it relates to how do you implement anything really? How do you get change facilitated? And hold on, I need to find the right document here. Oh, here it is. As far as strategic planning. So I'll that to you again. Sorry about that, Kevin. I just brought a lot of things in case questions pertain to any of these. It's kind of how I roll, but usually it's with technology, but I knew that would be available to us. So really we need to take a look at what are the critical benefits of this plan, what are the things that you have put in place. And fortunately for me, so much work has been done for the Academies, and it's all there. But now it's, okay, what are some of the voices that are still out there that are maybe questioning what we're doing, and really to listen to those people and to let them be heard and to value what they're saying, because the work has been great work. I'm blown away by the things that you've done for the Academy model, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. I really am. But then it's all about follow through at that point. And I've listed, when I went into ZM, I put these strategic planning things, because you can subscribe to whatever strategic planning. You can use any of the local guys, Cheeseboro, you can use anybody that's around here, but you've got to do the work to make it happen. You can have the best model in place, but you've got to do these things. And so I did my own research, including mostly based off Doug Halliday, and need to do all these things. You know, understand it's a process, not a one-time event. It takes time to do these things. Gather all the information you can, involve others, and all the things that I've listed. And then as you flip, you've got to be wary of pitfalls that could occur as well. And so we need to take a look at and see, have we been really careful to watch out for these pitfalls with the Academy model? Because it's incredible, and it's you know, for next generation people, it's tried and tested around the country, and it's been very, very successful. And most importantly, it's what's good for our kids now in the 21st century, and I truly, truly believe that. And then lastly, ask, how are we doing on it? What are we doing? Keep asking yourselves, what are we doing and why are we doing this? And then where are we going? And I really think it comes down, Scott, to the mantra of this school district in being education forward. I think we need to bring those two words to life with everybody and say, this is what we owe our kids, to be education forward. That's what the Academies model is all about. That's what the other changes that we have going on in the district are all about. It's all about being education forward for our students, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
All right, conversely to that question, are there elements that you would need to learn more about or would potentially alter? If so, why and how would you go about it?
You know, at this point, Sean, it's not fair for me to come in and say we need to alter this right away. But yeah, the first thing I need to do, I've got my perception of what the Academy's model looks like and the work of what you've done, but it's just my perception. I've got to get in there and get my hands dirty and get involved with all of the people that are involved, and even the people that are questioning things, and ask them, what is it that you're not confident about? And so it would be really unfair for me to come in and say, no, we need to alter this right away. But what I will be doing is asking questions, and I talked about this with the principals and the cabinet today. It's very empowering for people to be able to come into meetings and have a voice. And that's one of the things that I will bring. If I am not allowing the principals to be able to speak their truth at meetings, if I'm not allowing the cabinet to speak their truth at meetings, and if I'm not allowing teachers and everybody in the community to speak their truth, I'm not doing my job. And I guarantee you, if you talk to every single person that I've ever worked with, they will say, Mr. Anger listens to us, and he truly listens. And that's sometimes the biggest part that's missing in communication. You know, a lot of times people say that I'm a good communicator just because they talk a lot, but they miss the listening end of it. And so, again, I can't come in and say that I'm going to adjust a portion of it right now. I've got to get in, sit down with everybody and say, okay, you know, the 9th grade academy, how are we feeling about it? Where are we right now? What questions do you have? And, you know, there are some processes, and I included this into an entry plan that I might share with you if it relates to another question, but there's a process by which you ask people, okay, here's what we're going to do. Throw it to me, what is right about this plan? And then I wonder. Rather than saying what is wrong, it's frame questions as I'm wondering this about the plan. Because if you focus on those negatives, you're never going to move that plan forward. So first of all, we need to think about what is right, and then also question, I'm wondering this, and you know, and that is something that I would definitely work on with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please share the differences in our district and your current district and the challenges that you would encounter here if chosen, and how would you meet those challenges?
Sure. Well, thanks, Tony. Obviously, first and foremost, this is a much bigger district. There's a lot more going on in Shakopee, a lot more opportunities. And but again, my background is in big districts. I was asked to facilitate a referendum campaign in Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan, and you know, I like to think that they could have picked, and the principals actually asked this to me today. They said they could have picked anybody in that district to do that. Why did they pick you? And I think it's because they knew that people trusted me, and they knew that I was able and could do the job. But again, Tony, you know, I think it is perceived that a person from a small district is going to have a hard time in a big district. But the issues are the same, and they just change in scale. Keith and I were talking about, you know, a big issue in southeast Minnesota, buses going in and out of different districts. You know, it's really interesting. People will send buses just about anywhere down there, and it's very competitive that way. And so that's a huge issue that's there that is not as prevalent in some other districts that I've worked in. But the issues that we face here in Shakopee, you know, especially, I'll give you an example. The budget's a great example. Obviously, it's larger, but when it comes to the core, ways to solve those budgetary issues are similar. You know, we need to ask questions like, okay, are we charging any of our salary to staff development? There are many different strategies that, fortunately, I've got a great cadre of retired superintendents that are contacting me and giving me advice all the time, sometimes more often than I want the advice, but giving me advice all the time to say, well, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? And so obviously size is the most blatant and out there issue, but you know, other ones that don't happen as often in smaller districts are boundaries, something that we'll be facing here. It's not something you face in a smaller district, but it's something I lived often. I happened to work and be a principal at 2 schools with burgeoning enrollment, and we did a really great job with our capture rates of getting kids out of private schools and into our schools, and it impacted the district adversely because they then had to make some boundary changes, and they were just growing areas too. So I've had lots of practice at boundary changes too. So there are a litany of issues that are different, but every district has their own problems, and it's about how does that leadership handle those problems? Do they look at those problems as opportunities? And that's what I do. There may be people in this community that are thinking, oh my gosh, there are all these issues going on in the Shakopee schools. But to me, that's what I relish. To me, I see opportunities, and I see so many opportunities for us to change that culture through handling all these different issues in a better way. Thank you.
So kind of, Gary, building on the notion that you come from a smaller district, you wear many hats, probably in your current role. How do you make that shift to a more executive style leadership, where you're going to have a strong, experienced staff of leaders that may not require you to be quite as hands-on?
Yeah, that's a great question, Reggie. And again, I'll reflect back to the experiences that I've had in a big district. I've been there, and I've done it. When you're leading a referendum in a district the size of 196, when people turn around and say, wow, how are you everywhere? You know that you're doing something right. But that comes down to structuring how those leaders are empowered. And that's something that I fall back on my experiences at St. Mary's. I don't think I would have been called into as many districts to help out or to have such a great professional network. I've got so many friends tweeting me nice things right now these last 2 days. If I hadn't done something right, if I wasn't really helping empower those people to become the best leaders they could be. And I talked a lot about that with the principals today, and I talked about, these are the things that are important to me. I want you to be able to come in to the meetings that we have and to be able to speak up. And I said that with the cabinet as well. You've got to be able to have a voice and to be able to be heard and to have the courage to come up and say, Gary, what are you thinking on this? And you're really not being as transparent as you said you would be. I need them to be able to do that. So it's really about empowering those people. And we have amazing leaders in this district. We really do. I'm fortunate to know several of them through, my professional network, like I said, and through different leadership opportunities in MESPA and MASA and other organizations. This isn't about me doing what's right, and it's not about the ideas I come up with. It's about working together. The best ideas are going to come out of our administrators, they're going to come from our teachers, they're going to come from our paraprofessionals, they're going to come from our community members. They're not going to come from me. And I'll give you a great example. In ZM, we are now looked at, for better or worse, as the pioneer in weather-impacted learning days, in having kids learn from home instead of a snow day. I didn't come in with that on my agenda. I had no agenda coming into ZM. That came out of teacher negotiations, believe it or not, and then it morphed into, why not? This is something we think we can do. And lo and behold, it's very successful. Our survey results from community members are very positive on it. And who knew that we'd be testifying at the Capitol for e-learning days and getting it passed in a bipartisan accord. And so that's how I do that, Reggie. It's about really empowering those around me to be able to find their strengths and soar with their strengths, as I say.
Hello,
Hi, Mary.
this is question number 8.
Okay.
You're wondering.
All right, thank you. I think I'm doing okay.
Describe your competence in the area of school finance and what your experience is in developing school budgets.
Well, I will say this. When you leave the principalship and enter the superintendentship, you think you know a lot more than you actually know. And when it comes to school budgets, I would challenge any superintendent to feel like they knew what they were doing on day one. And I came into a situation where the finance person and the sitting superintendent did not see eye to eye on how to do the budget, what the budget even was, and many other issues. So I had to learn a lot in a hurry. And again, I'll admit it, I turned to some of the best and brightest around Minnesota. Jody Zesbaugh from Ehlers was our finance director in South Washington County. There's not a person in Minnesota that wouldn't tell you she's one of the best in the business. And Jody helped us out so much, and I thought I knew more than I did when I got into the situation. But I am a student of this work. You're not going to find anybody that works harder. And we redevised the entire way that we did our budget. And I have a hunch that, we've got a very, very competent finance person in our district now that I'm really excited to have the opportunity to work with. And I think it's great timing to bring on a new superintendent that has had to go through that process in another district. So we can get together with ourselves, get together with our council, with our community members that are on the Budget Advisory Council, and really do some deep digging and ask some really good questions, but make it so that we can explain the budget to every community member in this district so it's understandable. And there are some harsh realities. I'm going to tell everybody right now, there are going to be some harsh realities that are going to come out of the budgeting process this year. I'm not going to lie to you. But we're going to be transparent about that. We are going to have some hard conversations about that in the principal meetings and in the cabinet meetings, but then that information is going to come out to the people that it impacts. So let's say we've got some staffing questions with a particular program. We're going to talk about that in administrative meetings, but then we're going to go out to the people that that's impacting so that we can really get the reality, because our perception may be wrong. We may be thinking we're overstaffed, but when we really talk to those people and see what they're doing, it may be that we're not, that we're right on where we should be, and also look at the results of that program. That's really, really important. We need to make sure that we're getting the bang for the buck for everything we're doing. We owe that to the community members, that every penny that we're spending we're able to explain it to them, and that it's being spent well. Thank you.
How do you ensure financial accountability?
I think I referred to it a little bit, Matt, but it's about honesty, and it's about letting people understand that we work in a transparent business, that there's not one person that should be the dictator over budgetary decisions in a district. The biggest pitfalls come when that happens, when people are not understanding what's going on with that budget. So we've got to be right out and open and upfront with it, Matt. And again, I work for you. You were hired by the taxpayers. That's who we owe. That's who we are responsible for. And if we're not following through on that, then we've got some problems. And that's something I learned in a hurry in Zumbrota, Mazeppa. I had to be really honest with the community about some aspects of spending and some areas in which we were not bringing in as much revenue as we should have been bringing in. And they were things that were things that an educator should know, that a leader, that a superintendent should know, somebody that has people that's filling them in on those, not necessarily something a budget director should know. And so I really want to take a look at not just our expenditures, but our revenues as well, to see, are we really maximizing all of the funds that we could be getting from MDE and from other outside resources.
Thank you.
All right. Many of us believe that the heart of a great school district lies in inspired leadership. In light of budget cuts and other pressures that have affected Shakopee Public Schools, what steps will you take to restore a district-wide sense of hope, unity, and trust?
Wow, that's an amazing question. I mean, it really lies at the heart of what's going on here. And my career has been about inspiring people, and it's been about finding out how do I help make them all better, and how do I take the time to recognize everybody that I work with. I shared this with a couple of you on the phone. I've never left work without writing at least 2 notes recognizing people for their good work in my entire career as a school administrator. And one of your teachers at the 6th grade center. I actually hired him, and I think he's the perfect metaphor for what's going on in Shakopee this year and why you should hire me. Great teacher, and I hired him. We had our staffing set. It was my first year at the elementary school in Egan, and so I was able to go out and get the best people. But our budget was a mess when I got there. We were overstaffed by 4 or 5 teachers. So at the end of the year, I had to release those people. But he emailed me, and I'm almost going to choke up on this, and said, Gary, I want you to know you were one of the best I've ever worked with. And I told Kevin I can't say I was the best, that he said I was the best that principal that he worked with. And he said, I want you to know I'm going to reach out to all the board members and let you know that you're the person that we should hire. And this is a person that I had to let go. But he was a great teacher. And all my career, if I've ever had to let go of a great teacher, I've made sure that they have a job somewhere else. And it's because I've got friends all over Minnesota. And so, Angela, that's kind of a metaphor for how I would handle the situation. Yeah, we're going to have to make some budgetary adjustments. But now one of them is going to be a surprise to anybody in this district. That if there's somebody that we have to let go at the end of the year, I want to be able to look that person in the eye and say, well, you guys were honest with me, and I'm a good person, and I have many skills, and because of that, you took care of me, and you found, either another job for me or another option in the school district. And so it's about walking the walk. It sounds corny, but there are a lot of people that are going to come in and tell you they're going to be able to change the culture. They're going to be able to, bring things around even in dire times. But I can look you in the eye, Angela, and everybody else here and say, I've done it. I've been doing it my entire career, and that's what I was put here on the earth to do. And I learned it from the greatest mentor I possibly could, my father, who, as a military man, had to be as gruff and tough as anybody could imagine, but was the most beloved person that I've ever met in my life. And so I can be the tough guy. I don't have time for bad teaching or for people not doing a good job. But when people are doing what we want them to do, when they're education forward in Shakopee, I've got their back all the way. And they're going to know it because they're going to hear it from me. And we're going to build some systems with the principals and the administrators in this district so they're doing the same thing. And so that we're all modeling that. And I'd like to do it with all of you as well.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
Is that all right? You said you don't have time for bad teachers. In a situation like that, how do you handle it?
Yeah, and I've had lots of experience with that in my career, Sean, and first of all, it's trying to get at the heart of the problem. What exactly is it that is making this person not be successful in the setting they're in? And to truthfully try to make improvements in that area. And to document if those improvements are not working. And then oftentimes the next step is to change the setting in which that person is. Because if you change the setting or the responsibilities for that person and they're still not being successful and you've done a good job of documenting, it's not as hard as it seems to have somebody not be a part of your team. And there have been many times where I've come into situations and somebody can be a real talented person, but maybe they're an isolationist. They just are not a collaborator, and that just doesn't work for me. And I have to be honest with that person and say, you've got some great skills, but your skills don't match what we're trying to do at Shakopee. I'm happy to share your good skills with other districts and to help you find somewhere that's a better match for you, but it just is not working for us in Shakopee.
All right, so as a district level administrator, what sort of unique, creative, out-of-the-box type of idea have you implemented that actually saw some results, and how did you make it happen?
Wow, that's a really good one, Scott.
I'll forward the one.
I actually have a really good answer for you, though. So in Zumbrota, Mazeppa, they are wild about their bridges down there. Zumbrota has the only covered bridge in Minnesota. It's beautiful, by the way, so if you haven't gone, go take a look at it. Mazeppa has this beautiful walking bridge over the Zumbro River that's probably raging today after all the rain. But I did take the day off to be with all of you today. I took a vacation day. So because of that, I sat down with our administrative team and I said, we've got to do something fun with Bridges. We've got to spend a staff development day with Bridges. And so we are racking our brains for a couple months and then came up with the idea to involve all the staff in a day where we went into the big high school gym and we just had cardboard and duct tape. And the goal for the entire group was to make a bridge with just those materials that we could all walk over. And I wish that we had, somebody with Ashley's skills there videotaping us, because I guarantee you would have had one of the best motivational business videos that you could possibly get. We literally, within the span of about 3 hours, built a cardboard and duct tape bridge. Some people were making signs, that had, things to do with the bridge, building a bridge to the future, which is our motto in ZM. And it pulled everybody together, and it was incredibly effective. And yeah, we did that in December of my first year. And like I said, it took us a few months of racking our brains. And it was an idea that we got from a business that had done something real similar, and we found it on YouTube. We didn't have the budget to do the way they were doing it, but we had an incredibly successful just bonding moment at that time. And, there were hugs, and I think at that time everybody believed and knew that we were all in it together, and that we had turned everything around within a span of a few months. Thank you.
Please tell us about a time where you had to make a difficult decision that appeared to be a no-win situation. What did you decide? What was the outcome? And what did you learn from that experience?
I will relate it directly to the superintendency, because that's what you need to know, that difficult decisions happen on a regular basis in the superintendent's office. And the hardest decision I had to make right away, first few board meetings that I had, was to release a very high-ranking person. I want to be careful because I know we're on public record. An employee in a very prominent position in the district. And I had to work with a board in which I was brand new and had to educate them of how we handled such situation. I called some of my friends again. I had to really be certain about all the legal issues with it. And fortunately, Jill Coyle, who is a very gifted school lawyer in 196, was somebody that I leaned on quite heavily, involved the school district attorney that works for ZM, and made sure that all those legal applications were utilized in that situation. But I also needed to handle the person that it was occurring to, because honestly, this was a person that I hadn't necessarily worked with or knew a lot about, but I knew the situation. And it always comes down to what is best for the kids and what is best for the district. And your decisions as a superintendent always have to be born in what's best for the students in this district and what's best for the district. And really, that involves all different facets, like how are you supporting your principal in this difficult decision? How are you supporting your cabinet member? How are you communicating to the community members? And how are you supporting them to make sure, whatever it is, that they know that our schools are safe, that they know that you're doing what's right, and what's the level of communication that's okay in that situation. And so it happens all the time. It's a part of the job, and it's not for the weak of heart. You've got to still be able to bounce back and say that was a tough situation, but we've got work to do. Let's put the smiles back on, and let's keep doing what we're here to do, education forward. You've got to move forward from that and get back to the core of what we need to do. Thank you.
What is your biggest strength and biggest weaknesses as a superintendent?
My biggest strength is that I am incredibly positive. I always feel like there is opportunity around every single corner, and that I'm able to impart that on the people that I work with, that I have an ability to have people follow in that path and know that we're in the best profession that you could possibly be in. I was born to be an educator. When people ask me, what do you do? I always say I'm an educator. I never start with I'm a superintendent, because at my core, I've always been a teacher, and that's what I do. That's what I was put on earth to do, is to teach people, and teaching principals, teaching teachers, teaching kids, teaching community members, teaching board members. That's my biggest strength, is to help. And it comes from, so much reading and so much work that I put into this profession. I've just poured my heart into it. And I would say that's probably my weakness as I look at my lovely wife over there. I love being at everything. I hate it when I miss an event. It just drives me crazy. I want to be at every concert. I want to be at all the games. She's with me at a lot of them. I don't want to miss a parade. I don't want to miss a community event. I'm really bad at letting any part of the job of being an educator go in my life. It's part of my hobbies too, and I'm going to embarrass my wife for just a second, but just the other day, I'm sitting, I've had some back problems lately, so I was laying on the floor and I had, ZM work spread out here. I had, tons of Shakopee things spread out here. She's watching it was from Stanford University. She's doing an online class, right? It was Stanford, Lori? And she's making comments like, whoa, that Carol Dweck really needs her bangs cut, and things. And so we are so immersed in this profession, and so that is probably my weakness. But that's what we do. That's our hobby. We, Sunday nights, we like to talk about equity issues, and an amazing show that's on CNN, the United Shades of America, that we have lovely conversations with our two daughters that I probably missed out on in the intro. Emily and Betsy. Emily just graduated from the U, and she's going to grad school to become a speech pathologist at UMD. And then Betsy, who just finished her freshman year at Winona State. So, man, that was a big mistake, huh? All right, I'll look back on that. So, yeah, I'm glad we came around to that, but yeah, that's my strengths and weaknesses.
So Gary, this is number 14.
All right.
So you've made the loop twice now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you specifically suited to be Shakopee's interim superintendent?
Reggie, I bring to the table what this school district needs right now, and Shakopee brings to the table what I need in my profession right now. When hiring a superintendent, every time you talk to a recruiter out there, a former superintendent, a current superintendent, board member, they always say it's about fit. And I am it's amazing what the fit is right now between the skills that I bring to the table and where Shakopee is going right now. I'm an innovator. I'm a person that is able to see change through. I'm a person that handles discord and problems in the past really well. And more than anything, I'm a proponent of and someone that has the ability to change culture. And those are my strengths, and those are the things that we need in Shakopee right now. There are amazing things that we're going to be able to accomplish once we get those windows cleaned here. And I'm a really good window cleaner when it comes to education, and that's why I think I'm your person, Reggie. I couldn't be more excited about it. When Lori and I have talked about the job, when I've talked about this position with other people, like I'd mentioned before, the last 2 days, I was incredibly scared to break it to my current board. It's a very emotional thing and hard thing to do. But since that happened, the messages I've received from people once my picture went up on your website and the press release went out, show me that I'm in the right profession, but they also show me that this is the right person for this job. I don't know what you've received as far as feedback, but I know that I can't tell you how many people that have come forward and said, I'm going to contact the school board in Shakopee because you were there for me, Gary, because you were the leader that I believed in, and And even people that are educators here in Shakopee that have said, wow, you're the perfect fit. It got a tweet today, a direct message on Twitter saying, you know what, Shakopee really needs somebody that's got some digital leadership, and you're one of the best in the state as far as tweeting out positive messaging and being able to share your district story on Twitter. And so all those aspects are what I bring to the table, Reggie, but I've never been more confident of a fit in my life. And I also know that's what ZM needed when I came on board there. But I relish challenges like this, and it's opportunities. There are nothing but opportunities here in Shakopee. I know that within a short time frame, I'm going to have the people that work in this district and the community members believing that, son of a gun, this is not just one of the best districts in Minnesota, it's the best. And all of the initiatives that are coming together and all of the past practices and the amazing people that work in this district and the amazing community members, there's no reason that we can't say that about Shakopee. We're going to be saying that. And I know that because that's what they're saying in ZM right now. They're saying, we're the best darn rural school district in Minnesota. And we can stand up and we've got tons of results to affirm that. Thank you.
Now, wondering if you have any questions for us.
I do. And I posed a really important question to each of the groups that I met with today, to the cabinet and to the principals. And I was really heartened by the response because I was expecting a little bit different, but I want to know how are you feeling right now as board members? How, at this moment in time for the Shakopee schools, what are you thinking? What are you feeling right now?
I'll start.
All right.
Just speaking for myself, and I'm glad this is being filmed, I feel like a complete failure. That's the only word I'm going to use right now.
Okay. All right. How do you feel about the future then, following that up, Scott?
I feel like there's a point where you get to rock bottom and there's only one way to go, and that's up. And I wonder if we're there. I hope we're there.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to being able to lift my head up and start climbing, as opposed to continuing to look down and wonder, if we're going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the future for me.
All right. Others?
I'll go. I feel like we've had some issues. We've made some mistakes, several mistakes. But when you ask the second part of that question, how we're feeling going forward, I'm very optimistic. You talked about all the great things going on in this district. We've got a great staff. We've got great principals. We've still got great visionary leaders who can help drive the academies through. I'm very excited and energized by the future going forward, and we're looking for the right person to sit in that seat.
Mm-hmm.
And that energizes me for going forward.
All right. Thank you.
I'll go. I don't know, I've been on the board for 3.5 years. I don't know that I knew how to be a board member until the last 4 or 5 months. And I feel a lot of shame for that. But I'm also proud of where I've come. And mostly, every single day, I think of the people that work here and the work that they have done to bring us where we are today and our future. And I am so proud of them and what we have done. And I try really hard every day not to lose sight of that.
Thank you.
I feel fortunate, kind of. I know it sounds kind of weird, the situation we've been in, but we've lost a few good people over this time, but we have a lot of strong people in this district that have stayed with us. And that just shows that they're behind the district. We need to figure out how to move forward with that. We have a lot of positive things going on, and it's just, we need to keep looking up. And I think with the direction, I think that's why some of the staff has stayed with us, the teachers, is because they see the light.
Thanks, Tony. Anybody else? I know this is a tough question, and it's putting you on the spot publicly, but it's also a chance to get it off your chest. Anybody else?
I can tell you I have every emotion in the book in my body right now. So I can't give you just one emotion that I have. But what I can say about the second part of your question is that I believe we'll be better on the other side. I believe and have a ton of faith in our district and our community that we will overcome this, and that we really have great things ahead of us. So that's what's keeping me afloat these days.
Great, thank you, Angela.
Gary, I don't know there's a whole lot to add other than to say that personally I'm sad to be in the situation that we're in and gone through what we've gone through. I'm disappointed. I'm angry. No one wants to be in this position. But having spent 30 plus years in the corporate world, leadership positions, it's not about, dwelling on the past. It's how do you fix it and how do you move forward? And so I'm encouraged with the things that we have done, are doing, and will do. And I'm confident that just as you said in your comments at one point, it's always focusing on the kids, this district as a whole, the community as a whole, doing what's right. And that's not always an easy decision, that's not always easy to explain, it's not always easy to understand. But that's the focus that we have as a board and we have as a community, and we certainly need that in the person that we hire.
Thank you, Reggie. Anyone else? Mary?
How about the staff? I'm willing to move forward.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. I honestly, that's really the big question that I need to know, and I need to know that because the superintendent works for the board, and my job is to help you, and to help by helping you, we are all helping the district, and I want to go on record as saying that I've obviously been studying incredibly closely all the things that have happened in the past for the Shakopee schools. And one thing I know is these are good people that we're looking at here. Good people get put into tough situations sometimes, and there are great people in this community, and there are incredible educators, and but all there is opportunity in front of us. All there is the chance to make things better, and that's why this is so exciting to me. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be sitting in front of you, but it would be an even greater honor for me to be your superintendent. I also want you to know, and this is something that doesn't happen in interviews very often, but your other candidate, Mike Redmond, is a dear friend and he's a wonderful man. And I want to tell the entire Shakopee community that no matter what decision is made, that great things are going to be happening, and Shakopee schools are going to be education forward. I absolutely guarantee you. I hope it's me, and I personally feel like I'm the right fit for it, but there's not one bad thing that I could say about Mike. There's not one bad thing. His wife is amazing, Carol. She's a wonderful person. They're a great family, and I know that interviewing 101, you're not supposed to compliment the other candidate, but I have to do it because Mike is a class guy and he's a great guy all around, and there's not one bad thing that I can say about him. So, I've got a litany of questions, but they're questions that are probably more appropriate to occur as we begin our work together. And so, again, I thank you all for this opportunity. And does anybody have any other follow-up questions or anything that you're wondering from me?
Just to thank you for the level of time and passion you've brought to this process already. I know you've been on the phone with me a few times, and I think Sean and Tony a few times as well. So thank you for the effort you put forward this far.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I want to assure the community that it has been a very thorough process, even though it's been unusual, and that I honestly don't think that Shakopee could have brought two better candidates forward. I don't think so. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Sure. Be happy to. Take you up front.
Okay, well, first I'm going to shake everybody's hand. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thank you.
Can I get you face to face?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Great to meet you.
Break for
What you got?
5 minutes
Yeah, can we
while we're getting gathered.
take a station break?
Gotta clean my stuff up first.
Yeah, 5 minutes?
Let's go 10 minutes so they can easily swap.
Okay.
Start at 5 after.
The feed will continue.
Whoever your sound person's already down. That's good. Are you gonna say something or should
Yeah,
I?
I'll introduce, and I think everybody's going to introduce themselves.
Perfect.
So, get ready to go again. So, again, welcome for staying for round 2 of the interim superintendent interviews. School board, again, is going to ask a series of questions, same questions they asked the first candidate. There's 14 questions. Hope we kind of keep it within an hour, but I think we've said, it might go over. It's just depending on how things go. And this is Mike Redmond, and Mike, the board is going to introduce themselves to you.
I'll start with Kevin.
Earlier.
Meredith Wolanski.
Angela Sucker.
Scott, so what's this?
Hi, Ryan. Nice to meet you finally.
Welcome, Reggie.
Try to sit down without
So, Mike, we're just going to ask questions, kind of go around the horn.
Super.
All right. We'll start with Mary.
Yeah. Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Mike Redmond. I'm currently the superintendent of Goodhue Schools. I've got a fantastic job working in a fantastic community with an outstanding school board, outstanding staff, and get the pleasure of working with great students every day. I would say it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I thank you very much for this opportunity this evening. And it's hard even to put into words how excited I am to be here. I grew up in the Midway of St. Paul. Education's been an important part of my life. I feel very, very fortunate to be married to my wife, Carol. It'll be 28 years on August 5th. She's an educator, she's an elementary teacher, she's a literacy specialist, an interventionist, and does some adjunct professor work for Concordia St. Paul and their literacy program. We've got 2 great boys. They're actually both in town right now. I haven't seen them yet today, so when I get home, I'll get to see them. Reed is he lives in Chicago. He just graduated from Loyola in Chicago, and he is a podcast producer. He is an awesome kid, super creative, and loves to write, and is doing something that is near and dear to his heart. It's actually his second job. He graduated in May, so he truly is a millennial as well. I always said he's going to work 39 different jobs, and I might have to recalibrate. And then my son Ryan turned 25 yesterday, and he and his girlfriend drove to Goodhue today, and he is a social studies teacher. Imagine that. Dad at one time was a social studies teacher in Matamidi High School. I was a teacher there and a coach. Taught and coached both in Matamidi and had a 3-year stint overseas at Ibn Khaldun National School in the country of Bahrain. So I taught and coached for 18 years, loved it, and then went and became an assistant principal at North High School in North St. Paul, and then the principal at John Glenn Middle School in the same school district. Went to Stillwater, was an assistant superintendent, or if you look at the resume, and I joke about this a little bit, it's a really long title, and I honestly don't remember what it was. But we always joke that every word in that title meant they could pay me about $2,000 less a year. But it was in essence an assistant superintendent. And then I had advice from a mentor, somebody that I really trusted and respected, Don Lifto, who was a longtime superintendent in Matamidi. Then he was a superintendent in Northeast Metro. When he realized that I really wanted to be a superintendent, he reached out to me. He knew that I was in a central office at Stillwater, and he said, what's your goal here? What are you trying to do? And I said, I think being a superintendent is a perfect job for me. I think it fits who I am, it fits what I've done, it fits what I want to do. And he asked the question, he said, well, do you want to be a superintendent in a large metro district? And I said, absolutely, that is the end goal. That's where I see myself working. And then he said, you should go to a small town. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, here's what happens. And he used me as an example. And he said, you tend to be a little bit imbalanced. And he's great. He's a friend, so it was really good, honest advice. And he said, well, what have you done? And he knew what I'd done. He hired me twice. I taught and coached his kids. But, you know, I was a teacher. I was a coach. So it's instruction. It's teaching and learning. And then I was a principal. And again, primarily, you're managing and you are dealing with budgets and things, but it's a lot of teaching and learning and curriculum work. Then you're an assistant superintendent and you're doing teaching and learning. And he said, you know, when you become a superintendent, you're a generalist, and really you've been a specialist up to this point. All your work has been in teaching and learning, curriculum, and that's great, but he goes, there's a whole lot more to do as a superintendent. And he thought, and he felt strongly, and it had been part of his kind of development as a leader, go to a small town. You will be involved in everything. You will be involved in operations. You'll be involved in finance. You'll be involved in building and grounds. Community, you name it, I'm involved in it. I've learned so much. I'm very, very appreciative that he took the time to share that information with me and to do it in such a way where I went, you might be onto something. And so, and I believe he is. So I've had 4, you know, I'm starting my 5th year. I've had 4 just absolutely fantastic years in Goodhue. I've learned a ton. I believe that everything kind of in my adult life, my professional life, has in one way or the other led me here tonight, and I think it's the right place at the right time. And as I said, and I forgot to hand these out, but I'll pass a packet around. On the front page of that it says, I believe in Shakopee. I believe this is a great place, and I want to be part of the future here. So.
Well, along those lines, what do you believe to be the top 3 issues or challenges facing Shakopee Public Schools?
Well, I think the number one issue is getting the focus back where it belongs, and that's on student learning and all the great things that are happening with our students across the district. And not to kind of tie into to kind of the slogan, but it's move forward. I mean, it really is. It's the past is the past, and what's led us here. Yep, we want to learn from it, absolutely. But I don't think we need to dwell on it. I don't think we need to you know, have where it impacts the future any more than it already has. I think it's done enough, you know, kind of harm. So number one is get back on track and do the important things. Which number one is let's focus on students. There's some big work ahead. You know, obviously with the shifts, you know, the fall of 18, we're, you know, adding a 9th grade to the high school. You're shifting to a, you know, 6th to 8th grade middle level model. You know, changing a 6th grade school into an elementary school, so you've got redistricting. So I think it's making sure we're ready to do those things well, making sure people are on board. So that'd be number 2 is kind of that immediate planning for, you know, next year and the year after, making sure people know what's happening. Making sure we're ready to do that, make sure we're ready to do that as to the best of our ability. And then I think number 3 is you know, work to figure out where we want to be in 5 years. Work to do all those things, you know, rebuild relationships. You know, maybe that's number 3 is rebuild relationships and make sure we're communicating the way we should. And for me, it's you know, let's jump into this thing with both feet and let's get started. So I don't know how many I gave you there, but it was at least 3.
Extra credit.
Yeah. Well.
What do you hope to accomplish during your first 90 days of employment?
Funny, that was my question. I was going to ask the board if I got a chance. Well, in this packet that I failed to hand out, but I will, there's actually a transition plan, and I worked on really kind of the first 40 days in there. It's to immerse myself in Shakopee. It's a crash course in Shakopee, everything Shakopee, the school, the community. Get up, get running, get to know things, get out, see people, go visit places, talk to people, communicate, listen. You know, I need to listen and learn. I'm not coming in. There is not a Redmond plan. I do not have all the answers. I don't know the questions completely yet. I've got an idea, but I need to talk to a lot of people. I need to talk to the members of our cabinet. I need to work with our principals. I need to work with our other staff. I need to work, obviously, with the board and the community to find out what's happening. So I have a 40-day plan that I want to readjust, and it's a lot of who am I going to meet with, what am I going to do, what events am I going to do, where, how can I be public? If you would, Kevin, that's fantastic. And that's all laid out in there, and so I've got that idea. It begins with, if things go well, I'd like to think next Tuesday I'm putting a house up for sale in Goodhue. My wife and I, this is not a decision that we made lightly. I believe if you're going to be a good superintendent, you have to immerse yourself in that community. It's what I did in Goodhue. I actually live a block from the school, which is very interesting. They hired a Metro guy, and then he lives a block from the school. And it is amazing, though, what that has done just to make people comfortable talking to me. And I think it's doing a lot of those things. It's getting out, it's meeting people, it's finding out where we're at. And we spent a lot of time earlier today with the principals and the cabinet, having just kind of started discussions on that. Where are we? Where are we with these plans? What needs to be done? And so I think I've got the first 40 days covered, Angela. The next 50 after that will kind of be dictated by those. But I know it's, there's a lot of work, and I'm excited to do that work.
Great, thank you.
Okay, tell us about how you've educated yourself in the Academy's model that is currently in motion for our high school, and share your anticipated approach to ensuring its success.
Well, I've talked to a number of people in Shakopee, including your former assistant superintendent, John Diezik, and others that have been involved in that, and trying to, when you say academies, it's, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of other people. And I've obviously visited the Ford website, I've visited the school district website. Jeff was at the meeting this morning. I would love to talk with the high school principal more, because I've also read the work done by that academic design team, which I think is fantastic. And I look at that, and there is so much good stuff in there. It's, the individualization of learning, the personalization of learning, making learning relevant, connecting it to the real world, and connecting kids to their passion as soon as we can and getting them on their path. So my big question is, I see that stuff, and I actually got excited reading that, because that impressed me. And so my big question is, how do we make sure that those things are the key components of the academies as we, in essence, Shakopee-ize and put those academies in and get them up and running. So I love, the 6 areas all make sense. I know there's, a lot of detail work to be done between now and then. I think we've got to make sure we've got resources to do it right, next year and into the future. There's a lot of those pieces, but I feel very, very comfortable with that. I've always, it's another reason I like Shakopee. You've done some of the heavy lifting in terms of, let's look at how we grade. Let's make sure that we're actually measuring real learning. Let's do some of these things and had discussions. And for me, I think that's a great match. I've always seen myself as a progressive educator, whether it was as a teacher, and our drives up to the cabin are really interesting. My wife and I learn a lot about elementary literacy, and I get to share a lot about, what is the future of education. I talked about my 2 kids. 20 years ago, I'd have been really worried about the creative writing guy. But now I think he's really suited for the world. He knows how to learn, he knows how to communicate and change. I have more worries about the middle school social studies teacher, because education is changing and it needs to change. And I want to make sure that he understands how to connect with kids in whatever model they're using, and make sure that what they're doing is purposeful and relevant. And so I think I feel good about where I'm at. I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert on it, but I'm going to tell you that beginning next Tuesday, I'm going to start learning everything I possibly can, so that I can provide some guidance and support and not be an anchor. So, thanks.
Conversely, are there elements that you would need to learn more about and would potentially alter? And if so, how would you go about this?
My honest answer there is, I don't know. How's that? I don't think you're supposed to say that at these interviews, but I've got to find out where we're at. And that's it's a question, I know where we're at on paper, I know where we're at philosophically. Where are we at as a teaching staff? Where are we at in terms of of having worked through some of those real specific detail things in terms of how we're going to do this and what does it look like. And when people ask questions about how often can I perhaps move from one academy to the other, or can I bounce, or can I do things, you know, do we have a plan for that? You know, like I said earlier, I'm not coming in with the Redmond plan. I trust that we've done the research on that, that's a community decision, it's a board decision. My sense today, talking to the cabinet and the principals, is they've been involved and invested in the academies, and we've got to figure out how to make it work the best for Shakopee.
Please share the differences in our district and your current district and the challenges you would encounter here at Chosen, and how do you meet those challenges?
Well, I've been driving around a lot. It takes a little longer to get from one side of the town to the other. There's a lot of similarities, and it's, you know, Goodhue is an unbelievable place. Goodhue is the school. Goodhue, you know, it represents the greater kind of Goodhue community, you know, kind of the townships around there all focus on Goodhue. I think that's one of the things that attracts me to Shakopee. Shakopee Schools is a huge part of this community, and there needs to be a synergy between the community and the schools. There's also, you know, I mentioned I grew up in the Midway of St. Paul, very much a working class background, whatever you want to call it, that common sense, you know, work ethic, whatever. Goodhue is that and then some. In terms of, hey, let's do what's right for kids, and they're very clear in what they want. They're very direct. I like that. They also, I think the thing that is in common, and I'll talk about the differences in a little bit, is the school is really important to them. And what happens with the young people in their community is incredibly important with them. Their businesses support the school. I know we're really well connected in Shakopee in terms of outside connections and businesses and support. The differences, I mean, the obvious one, it's a little bigger here, the district. It's, you know, it's a lot bigger, but I hope we have people building relationships with each and every kid here like we do in a Goodhue. And I've been in districts, you know, I was in North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, I had 11,000 kids. I was an assistant principal in a district with 8,000, so I get it. I would argue there's more similarities and differences, and I would also argue it's much easier to go from the smaller one where you're involved in everything. If your skill set is such, and I believe mine is, I'm missing sort of that managing people, helping leaders to develop and grow and get better. The other parts, you're more just scaling up. It's an order of magnitude. The mechanisms are the same. We have to file all the same things with MDE. We've got to do all the same budgets, all the same reports, typically with a lot less support and help and expertise. And so we work closely with our, you know, neighboring districts and things like that. And certainly, yeah, there's some logistical differences. There's some, you know, the superintendent job is different here. It's going to be more of being present and being visible. It's more, you know, you obviously have a lot more distance to cover to get to the schools and be in the schools. You know, and I'll miss that a little bit. You know, the kids at Wildcat Care at Goodhue know me by name because the school-age child care program's in the school. It's down the hall from my office. I haven't, you know, maybe the kids at Takata will get to know me by name. That would be good. But I'm not, you know, I get where that's a concern. I have complete confidence that transition will work, and we've got great people in place, and it will be nice not being, you know, the one with every title in the district and have other people who have expertise that you know, can lead those things and I can ask questions of and hopefully guide and support. So it's really a shift in a sense from doing some of those things to guiding and supporting.
This next question can be right along the same vein. You appear to wear many hats in your current role, as you alluded to, and so the question is, how do you make that shift to more of an executive leadership kind of a role where you're going to have a strong, experienced staff leader that may not require you to, you know, be quite as hands-on in everything?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I'm excited about that shift. It's part of knowing who I am as a person, knowing who I am as an educator. I believe I have a great skill set in that. If I have, and I mentioned earlier today, I have no ability to sing or dance. You know, I don't run very fast either anymore. And but I do believe I have a real good ability to see the big picture, to understand how you connect a vision and goals to the incremental developmental steps that get you there. And I also believe, and I love just that whole concept of leadership. It's one of the things, it's one of the reasons I was a coach, and it's one of the reasons why I've always gravitated towards roles of leadership, whether it was teacher, leader, at a young age, and I've always kind of done those things. I believe I have a very, very good skill set. I miss doing that. There just aren't the opportunities to do that in a good Hugh. And so for me, I look forward to working with all the great leaders that we have as our principals and our cabinet members, to help them, to support them, to help them to grow as leaders, to help them do a better job in that role. And so, yeah, certainly be a change, but it's a change. I got to do some of that when I was at Stillwater. I was obviously in charge of, the secondary principals. I loved that part of the job. And I missed it. And, there's a limit to how much I can do with, my elementary principal Mark and my secondary principal Mike. They get tired of me coming every day to do things. No, it's just not the same. So I'm fired up about that.
Your question is, describe your competence in the area of school finance and your experience in developing school budgets.
Finance and budgets. Well, for a social studies guy, I always had a math streak, and I actually taught AP economics for a number of years, so I like that stuff. Now, and this would have been exactly the kind of question when Don Lifto said, go to a small district, you're gonna get experiential learning. I've gotten experiential learning and then some in terms of finance and budgets. We contract with a company called School Management Services. My first business manager was a guy by the name of Todd Netsky, who is, I know, doing some work here in Shakopee. So I worked closely with him. We had a lot of work to do in terms of systems and processes in Good Hugh, and we've done that. It's taken us, we're not done yet, but we put things in place. I've worked closely. In Good Hugh, I have a business manager on site 1 day a week. I have accounts payable personnel, payroll people there a little bit more. But when they're not there, I have to have the understanding. I end up taking care of a lot of the detailed things, and obviously I call Todd Lechtenberg, who's my business manager now, quite often if it's a question that's complex or I need him for. But I'm intimately involved in the budgets and in the finance part of that. Even so much as, in terms of filling out some of the reports. And I'm very, very happy to say that in Good Hugh, we've got great processes now. We updated, for example, our student activities processes, and we have a handbook now, we have forms, and we've become very, very good at making sure there's some redundancy in terms of when people are signing off for things in the activities department, and that there's checks and balances there. We've got a handbook, we've got forms, and we've become very, very good at enforcing that. Our budget process has gotten just simply better and better. We've used the school management services budget tools, and we're now getting to the point where I believe we're this coming school year. Last year we were pretty good at making sure things were coded in, and I would say 95% of the time in the right places. Our goal is to be a lot closer to 100% this year. And so, I've got a list of budget codes for everything I approve on my desk, so it's to that degree.
Along those same lines, how do you ensure financial accountability?
I think it's by consistently being informed, observing, watching, doing the best you can to be part of that system of checks and balances. It's to have redundancy wherever possible. It's to ask questions if things don't make sense. And we've got those processes in place. For example, when we're doing budgeting stuff, and it's interesting, we'll rattle off, there'll be all kinds of numbers and projections and things. And then I'll get them for a while. I'll typically meet once a week. Like I said, I'll have them for a week, and I'll dig through them and hopefully be able to come back, at least with some good questions. But sometimes go, wait a second, where did this come from? how do we make that projected? What's that based on? I don't, and we'll work through that. And sometimes simply a math error that something was out of place. So I think you need good people. I think you need people looking at that. I think you need redundancy, and I think it needs to add up. There should be a finite amount. It's a math equation, not a social science equation. So.
Many of us believe that the heart of a great school district lies in inspired leadership. In light of budget cuts and other pressures that have affected Shakopee Public Schools, what steps would you take to restore a district-wide sense of hope, unity, and trust?
I think by coming in and demonstrating a passion for student learning and getting out, being involved, being visible, going to places, sharing the message of anytime good things are happening with our students, being an advocate for that, communicating. It's a little bit of a tricky question to answer because it's so much a part, I think, of who I am and who I've always been in education that it's almost hard to, in a sense, break it apart and go, yeah, this is step one, step two. It's just, I do what I do. It's sort of when I got asked, when I got hired in Goodhue, well, how are you going to get to know the people? And I go, well, there's only 1,176 of them in town. How hard can it be? And that wasn't the answer they necessarily wanted. And after a year, they went, all right, we see what you mean. You did that. You got out and you got to know people. I think it's being honest, being open, being there, listening, communicating. At worst, when we talk to people about what we're doing, we're going to agree to disagree. And I think that's an important concept. Not everybody likes everything that we've done in Goodhue, but those who don't, who connect or communicate with me, and I believe the other leadership there, at worst, we will have listened to them and really tried to understand where they're coming from. And then hopefully they've given us the same, respect and listen to us and allowed us to explain what we're trying to do. And if we do that, we've at least tried to see the issue, see the topic through each other's eyes, from each other's perspective. And then I feel, sometimes you may just have to agree to disagree, but you at least have earned the respect of trying to understand from another perspective. And I'm always open to that. I learned so much from people who share differing opinions than my own. And I want to be available to hear that. I'm open to that. I always want to be reflective. I want us to, take a look at what we're doing and assess it honestly, and then share the good things, share where we're really making progress, and make sure it's legitimate, make sure we can back it up and support it, that it's not just what we're wishing to happen, but things that are actually happening.
Okay, as a district level administrator, what sort of unique, creative, out-of-the-box type of idea have you implemented, and what were the results? And specifically, how did you make it happen?
This week? No. Well, we talked to Vera in town. She's going to let us cut the birch tree down in her yard where we want to put a greenhouse. But she was a wonderful lady, and we went over and visited and said, and she said she hated the birch tree, so it was really easy. But I think, what pops into my head would be back when I was a middle school principal, and I think it's an example of a lot of things. We reworked our middle level kind of curriculum and schedule when I was in North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale School District. And as part of that, and we were dealing, there's always limitations on resources. And we had some pretty significant, restrictions on resources there and had to be very good with those. And so I worked we knew we had to do something with our music. And we wanted to have great high school music program. Middle levels, we're good too, but we wanted to figure out how to sustain that. And so the first step, as we're shifting to this new model, is I brought together all the music teachers, the 5th grade music teachers, kind of elementary leading in, and then all, the middle level teachers to find out their perspective, because we had very different things happening in every 5th grade. We had 9 elementaries, and it wasn't universal. And we had conversations about the reality of the situation, and I think that's an important part. Yep, we can talk about the ideal, we can talk about if we had absolutely unlimited resources, what we would do. We had to talk about the near-term reality, and we can certainly put off, and say, yep, in the future, we want to go here, here, and here. So we had that discussion, and I still remember that, because as I think about it, that was a tough discussion, because I was the one providing most of the reality, financially and otherwise, and it's people who pour their hearts and souls into what they're doing. And I get that, and I respect them for that. And then it was shifting that process to how can we make the best out of this situation that we absolutely can make. And what we decided as a group, and it was as a group, after a lot of discussion, was we really need to make sure that when students, we want every sixth grader to have a great opportunity in music. And that was a tough decision, because there were some really good things happening in a couple of the fifth grade programs, really good. But we said, all right, we are going to guarantee that we're going to do a great job in sixth grade. And so that was the beginning of it. And then we did something, and this would be the part that I think was somewhat unique. It's, we started looking at, the middle school I was at had a high incidence of poverty, over 60%. And we started talking about, at that time, and I'm not going to be exact on the number, but roughly 40, well, we actually had a third class, but we had instrumental music, vocal music, and then general music. And we said, is general music, we had another discussion, is general music really any good? And consensus was, no, it really isn't. Well, why don't we, in sixth grade, we're going to say you got to pick. You're going to take instrumental music or vocal music, which is a pretty significant step. But we had the teachers willing to do that, willing to go out and help kids who are hesitant to do that. So that was the first thing that was maybe a little bit unique. The second one was they've gotten very, very skilled at, when you're working with folks, and I get it, like I said, very working class, and I know what it's like, as a young kid, powdered milk, it was a big day in my house when we mixed it with whole milk. That was a great day in my childhood. So I get what's going on there. And we talked about how we were doing all these forms, and you can get a scholarship to do this instrument, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and I'm like, well, why aren't more kids taking instrumental music? We're missing something. And I still remember going home, and it just bothered me, because we had about 40% of kids who take instrumental, about 60% vocal, and I'm like, why don't more take instrumental? And then I thought about my own kids. I don't start the conversation with Ryan and Reed when we talk music at that age and go, hey, let's talk about how to pay for the instrument. Let's talk about what forms we got to fill out. My discussion is, what instrument do you want to play, kid? And so we shifted to, that was our question. That was our first sign up. We didn't talk, we figured out we're going to marshal resources some way, shape, or form to get that done. But we changed the paradigm and said, what instrument do you want to play? And then we had a few people say, well, can we do both band and choir? And of course I said, yeah, we'll figure that out. I went and talked to the music teacher, so we started that too. They alternated days. Our numbers that first year in instrumental music were greater than in vocal music. It kind of flipped that. And just fascinating by just simply asking the right question in the right order, and really just asking. And I think in somewhere, and maybe we'll get to this later, I think one of the roles of a board and of a superintendent is to advocate on behalf of those who may not be school system experts, and make it so that their kids can answer the same question that my kid can answer. What instrument do you want to play?
Please tell us about a time where you had to make a difficult decision that appeared to be a no-win situation. What did you decide? What was the outcome? And what did you learn from the experience?
All right, we're talking in my professional life,
yes.
Right? All right, that's good. No win. Oh, man. I'd like to go back to coaching. I learned somewhere in there that you have to do what you believe in, and I think that's carried over to being an educational leader. I'm trying to think of a specific example. It probably goes back, again, working in District 622, the period I was there as an assistant principal and a principal, I believe we made budget cuts each and every year. If not, it was nearly each and every year. Those are no-win situations, because you know in your heart that you want so much better for kids. And so the next best thing you can do is figure out how to marshal the resources that you do have to have the greatest impact possible. And I think working as a team collaboratively, the cabinet principals, I think really unfortunately, it's one of those things you don't want to get good at. I think we got good at having those real honest value discussions and you know, what's going to have a short-term impact, what's going to have a long-term impact, what can we sustain with a little bit less money, and then again, just being open and honest with that. And I'll kind of segue maybe, in Stillwater, we were looking at a projected budget cut if a levy didn't pass when I was there. And again, went to, you know, we knew it was going to be across the board, and out of the blue, I had the high school, and they've got an unbelievable, you know, symphony and music set. I had high school music. They came in and talked to me and said, if we ever get to this point, here's what we want to do. And I'm like, what? And they had, and thankfully they never had to follow through with this. They said, cut at the high school. And I'm like, what? And their logic was, we can recover from that faster. We know that at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, if this were to happen, we would get the funding. If we cut at the lower level, it will devastate us for 12, 15 years. Thankfully, we never had to go down that path. But again, it's trying to figure out, in that case, you know, what you value most, and then communicate with that with people, and then hopefully get people in the room that will give you that honest feedback on what is, you know, what's the least worst in that case, which is lousy work to do. So,
Kind of as a follow-up to that, how do you manage a situation with an underperforming teacher?
well, it's communicate. It's be clear. It's be explicit. And I've worked with a lot of developing principals in that regards on strategies. And for me, I think it's make sure you're doing a good job of assessing. Maybe take a step back and say that. Make sure that what you want from them as a teacher is explicit and it's clear, and then and that you're assessing when you're doing the feedback with that. When you're getting into those tough situations where you know the feedback is going to be negative, and I give this advice, oftentimes to younger principals too, I tend to write some of that down because I don't want to confuse the issue. I know a lot of times in education we're nice, we're people, we want to serve, we want to help, we want to support. But if somebody comes in and I'm going to talk about correcting something, improving it, and the conversation has 4 other segues into, boy, you really did a nice job doing this, and that was really cool. Sometimes they leave and they go, was I just informed that I need to improve my teaching? And I want to make sure there's no ambiguity in those situations. So I will be as polite and as respectful as I can, but I want to be very clear and concise. And like I said, I will typically write that down, talk about the exact things, try to develop, try to hear from them, their perspective. Sometimes they get it and it's really easy and they go, yep, you're right, I'm not doing that very well. Can you help me? And then absolutely, you want to have that plan ready to go. Other times there's a total disconnect and you've got to try to figure out, the first trial is how to help them to see it, see what you're seeing. And then unfortunately at times, and I love teachers. I think teachers do some of the greatest work in our society, and we've got to have good people doing that work. That's the flip side of that. So there is a part of me that's very protective of that, and if we've gone through that and we've exhausted those steps, yeah, not just anybody should be a teacher. And so at times you should, I've had to do that where we've counseled people out of the profession. In fact, a number of times. It's not pleasant, but it's the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right thing to do for the students that they're serving in the short run and for the school. And I would argue that more often than not, it's the right thing to do for them. They rarely come back and thank you later, but it's the right thing because they're not doing something that they're as skilled as they maybe think they are, or maybe they know they're not and they're trapped. So it's not a lot of fun, but it's important work, and it's work that you have to do. There's a greater mission, there's a greater purpose, and you've got to have some of those tough conversations at times.
What is your biggest strength and your biggest weakness as a superintendent?
I think my biggest strength is, and I mentioned it before, it's developing people. It's getting people on board, number one, for a vision, understanding where we're trying to go, helping them to get there. It's also helping them to develop skills, whether it's as a teacher or as a principal or as a, an educational leader. And you said my biggest weakness? There's a long list. No, I think it's sometimes I want to move forward too fast. I want, and I've gotten better at this. It's one of those where, and I mentioned with one of the groups this morning, as a leader, it's important, I think, to be out front and to always be trying to move forward. But you don't want to be so far out front you're over the next hill and nobody can see you. And it's to, it's also, and I've gotten much better at developing the patience to, it's not necessarily always important to get it done as fast as I would maybe like. It's really important to get it done right and done well and have it be lasting. So yeah, sometimes it's something I've got to watch. I've kind of got to gauge that I want to go, maybe 100 miles an hour, and I should maybe dial it back to 70 or something. And I'm not talking driving on the roads. That's just,
All right, here's a chance to kind of bring it all home. Why do you believe that you are specifically suited for Shakopee's interim superintendent position?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned at the beginning that I think in a lot of ways everything I've done in my professional life has in some way helped me to grow and develop into a very good leader who would do a very, very good job as a leader of the Shakopee schools. I believe I've got the skill, the intellect, the knowledge, the work ethic, the motivation, the drive to do an outstanding job. To me, and I write about it in that packet, this isn't just a job. This is the timing of this is terrible. It's very close to the start of the school year. My wife and I said, I want to immerse myself in this community. She's got a great job in the Goodhue area. We are, we're talking about selling a house, talking about, she may try to seek employment closer to here, if not this year, a year from now. So it might be we're renting a place kind of halfway between, which is somewhere between Farmington and Rosemont. I've measured it a couple times. So it's not just, it's not something we did, fly by night. It's, I would love to live in Shakopee. I would love to work in Shakopee. I believe that that I would be a very, very good fit. And I think it even gets into, it's the progressive nature of the district. I've got that. I like that this community still has that kind of common sense, working class sort of practicality to it. That's a big part of who I am. It says on the cover of that packet, I do believe in Shakopee. I'm excited to see what this district's going to do in the future. I would be a set of fresh eyes, and I think we're going to do great things here in Shakopee, and I want to be part of that team. And I thank you very, very much for having me here this evening. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, just, one quick one if we've got, we're
good.
ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Man, well, I got a lot more to say on those other questions. The biggest question, what do you want out of your superintendent in the next 3 months? It's written down here. What do you expect of me?
Well, I think you touched on it. First, we want somebody who's going to build relationships with the buildings, with the staff, with the cabinet, with everybody. But primarily there, because as you talked about, it is an odd time to be starting, right? Everybody's already in back to school mode. I think that's first and foremost, be somebody who's going to be known and listen to concerns from staff.
When I started this process, I said to myself, and I can only speak for myself, that my hope was that the person that we had leading this district would build relationships, like you said, with our staff, our community, and also be a good implementer. We have fantastic people leading great initiatives right now. And I guess for me, I'm not necessarily looking for a visionary. I'm more looking for someone right now who can help us achieve all the amazing things that we've started. So that's my goal.
Awesome.
I want somebody that's good with numbers.
Good. I had a really good SAT score. No. In math. I did actually.
I'd say first 3 months, everything. So we did everything, if that's all okay with you.
Great.
The word that comes to mind, this one is a healer.
Yes.
A healer, not necessarily, really, in terms of, as Sean alluded to, relationships is a big part of it. The financial situation is a big part of it. Again, rebuilding trust with the community, trying to help bridge some of those gaps and get us back on track. So healing comes in lots of different ways. There's lots of different ways to administer it. So probably somebody that has more than one tool in their kit, if you know what I mean, to help us figure out how we do that.
I do. I would, and I've got time if you want to hear. When I went to John Glenn Middle School, and Patty Phillips has a beautiful letter in that packet. They had a lot of trust issues there, and I would argue that culture was broken. And it takes, and that was a fascinating experience. And I willingly went there. I actually went and lobbied for that position with the assistant superintendent a couple times and said, I believe I can do this. And it was tough work. It was some of the most challenging work I've ever done in my life. And you guys know that you build trust one action at a time, and you try to build an account up over time, and one bad action wipes it all out and then some. And so, I get the importance of that. I get the importance of hitting the ground here and starting to have those interactions that will begin to build an account of trust. And I think that's, it's that healing that comes with building trust and then moving forward and knowing that, we've got, one of the, and I shared it earlier, and I hope it's okay to share, there's a lot of pieces that, and obviously, I know some of the details and things that have gone on in Shakopee. One of the things that troubles me is all the focus has been on things having nothing to do with students, and I think that's a travesty. And so that would be part of that goal, is how do we get back to where the focus is truly on students and people are talking about the great things kids are doing. I feel bad for the kids who did great things, in May and June, probably April of this year. It got completely overshadowed, and so for me, that's part of that trust too. Let's get the focus back where it belongs.
I kind of like what you said with your fast mover, because that's exactly what we need. You do have a late start, so I mean, if someone wants to dig in, maybe mention put your pulse up on the market. And that's just it. We need somebody that's driven and that wants to grasp everything all at one time. And it's difficult situation we're in.
And my life's been interesting in education. We joke a little bit, my wife and I, we're free agents now. The kids are up, they're kind of almost off the payroll too, it's awesome. But you'll notice that my timing to become a superintendent, coincided with my youngest one going away to college. And so I have a great passion for work in education. I tell my wife, when we talk about retirement, I go, yeah, maybe when I'm 70. I go, I don't know what else I would do. I love going to work every day with kids, and so I know this is a big job. I think we mentioned it with the cabinet that this is going to be unbelievably hard work, and hopefully it's going to be the hardest work you've ever done in your life, and it's going to have more meaning and satisfaction when we're out the other side of it. So, yeah, I'd love to dig in and get going.
My answer, Mike, would kind of be almost an alliteration. Compassion, competence, and communication. And what I mean by compassion is a little bit what Scott alluded to. It's the trust. It's the healing. That's where it helps. Competence, you got to be able to do the job. There's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of things to implement. There's a lot of things to correct. And then certainly on the communication, that's something we all strive to do more and better at. And you will have a key role in that. So again, it's a bit of a trite way of putting it, the compassion, confidence, and communication.
I wrote down honesty, integrity, accountability, relationship builder. Those are other things that are running through my head, along with some things that you guys have said as well.
And then my other quick question would be, is there anything that I didn't answer to your satisfaction that I could provide more clarity on? So I got a lot to say. I got a lot more. But, say thank you again. It is an honor and a privilege to be here, and, you know, like I said before, this is a great place. And I'd love to move here, I'd love to live here, I'd love to work here. You know, in my plan, I see this as, I see myself as retiring from Shakopee. And I just said I don't plan on retiring for a long time. I'm only 52. I know it probably shocks you that I'm old. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Sean.
We're going to take 10.
Thank you very much for all the time, all of our conversation.
We are still recording.
I know it's
Very good.
No, they're gonna tie. So they're gonna read about time. Stretching legs is good.
Okay, I wanted to let you know I like to knock the more sentence in the moment.
Thank you.
You got it, huh?
I just threw it in and I was really surprised that editor comes in.
No, it's good. I'm like, you gotta like P. Diddy, Tupac, Jay-Z, some of those, you know, and just keep it coming. No, that was really cool, just kind of open it like that, so I just wanted to say that. Nice job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So do you live in Shakopee? Do you now or?
I live in St. Paul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I didn't know I had this job when I was moving. So.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay. And then so you guys cover just Shakopee stores, or do you cover like Scott County and stuff, or do you mostly just Shakopee?
I cover some Scott County stuff sometimes, but
Okay.
our company owns like the papers. It's like 1 or 2 reporters in each paper.
Okay, I see. Okay.
So I'm covering Shakopee while the man is gone.
Okay, yeah.
It's probably going to be priorly affected.
Okay, I see.
So,
Is this your first job after graduating, or did you have a...
I graduated in May.
Oh, you graduated, yeah, you're doing a really nice job, yeah. It's really good writing, so...
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so just keep... Some of those references come in so funny. Like, I just gave her a compliment, she wrote an article and reference Macklemore.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, just...
Hanging in there.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I finally had to.
Oh, but yeah, no, I'm glad.
Yeah. I'm not going to engage, but I finally.
No, yeah, it's when it's something to do with progressive.
Because I wanted the rest of the sentence.
Yeah.
Because there was part of the sentence that was spoken, I wanted the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad you did. So you have it. So yeah.
How are you?
No good. We're just waiting for the baby.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's August 10th. So it's another boy. Yeah. It's another 3 boys. So I'm gonna.
Luck to you there.
Yeah. What? Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, our boys seem excited. They wanted it. One boy, they wanted a girl, so they got another one, a little brother. So, nice job. Very good. Nice job.
Both good candidates,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I like them both.
Yeah, I think the work is very personal. Mike has more kind of humor and stuff. Yeah, Gary seems like very similar. So yeah, no matter who you go for.
I know, right?
Yeah, so,
Great cross. I know, I know. Yeah.
yeah, no, but it is, it's good enough. No, but yeah, but the one to see
Yeah, I think
Oh, is it live or is it just?
Ashley did, yeah.
Oh, Ashley, okay.
Yeah, it was live. She did.
Okay, alright, that's good. No, yeah, for sure. Did you want people Oh, okay, yeah. Good question. Oh, yeah, like the guy mentioned that, yeah.
You probably use it.
Okay, that's good to see when you have the personal, yeah, it's, yeah, for sure. No, yeah, it's good. But yeah, he's really good job. It was really nice. Yeah, no, I all right. All I did over the course of the James, we were thinking about Chris and everything was going to summer for babies born. Yeah, so maybe if we do decide to go with James. And then kids are like, boy, maybe sit down, so because that was the feels. Okay. All right.
Okay, we're back in action. There's Keith.
Nice to see you.
Are you gonna
Ashley
come
went to
and
get
join
a
us up
charger.
here? Or?
There you go. Ashley went to get
You've already said that.
Oh, Ashley went to get a charger, so.
Oh, a charger.
Give you 2 seconds.
There's no camera right here.
Sorry.
I'll wait till the recorder gets back.
She's running.
Just start and then I'll. I'm going to talk about, the very first thing we'll do is I'll talk about the process. If you just want to introduce the position.
It's never been cold here, not for me. Let's look for a charger.
Go ahead.
You sure? Are we rolling?
I'll take it.
Yes.
Oh, the camera's still, oh, I was thinking for that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
heck,
think she
in that
left it
case,
going,
all right.
she'll clip it. Well, there we go.
Awesome. Okay, in that case, there she goes.
There she
All
goes.
right, we're gonna move on to the discussion portion of the interviews. We'll let Personnel Chair Hallett show us the road forward,
Backward.
backward, backward.
Backward.
Okay, we're gonna.
I just wanted to, in case people at home who are listening wanted to understand a little bit more about the process of how we got here to this point tonight. Just wanted to share that we started the process with 17 names that were either referred to us or contacted us having interest in this role. And of those names, 4 of them were unable to move forward either because they were geographically not close or they had current commitments. Of the remaining 13, 7 of them didn't meet some of the parameters that we had prioritized at our June 26th retreat. And I wanted to share that some of those priorities that we had talked about at that retreat were having an active or current superintendent's license, ideally having experience as a superintendent, being a relationship builder, like you heard tonight. And we had a strong preference for a candidate who would be willing to serve for 2 years. And the reason that we did that is because in the next 13 months, we have a lot of district-wide initiatives being implemented, such as redrawing boundaries, opening a new elementary school, moving the 6th grade to middle school, moving the 9th grade to the high school, finishing the construction on a high school, and opening the academies. And we felt it would be in our best interest to have some stability over that time. A 2-year commitment was also preferred because it allows a newly elected board to help guide the future direction of our schools. So based on that criteria, of the 5 candidates that remained, through a series of personnel committee meetings, we were able to narrow the candidate pool to 3, one of which declined moving forward. And so tonight we had Mr. Redmond and Mr. Anger interviewing with us. So that's how we got here tonight. And now, based on some interviews that we've done in the recent past, if we'd like to start maybe with each candidate, or maybe we'll talk about one candidate first, or do you want to do just thoughts, or do you have a preference as to how this part rolls?
I don't have a preference at all.
All right, so since we started with
practice.
Yes.
I probably would talk about each candidate rather than mix them up, because then I think it gets confusing, particularly
Okay.
because we're on rotation.
Okay, so if we want to start with Gary.
Well, I think Gary's clearly a healer, somebody who prioritizes relationship building and growing, not just nice to meet you, but let's deepen this relationship over time. That was very impressive.
I wrote down that he was very charismatic, full of energy. I really liked the answers to question number 2, where he talked about culture, and he said culture first. And I did like his metaphor of cleaning the windows. We have a lot of new windows at the high school.
Don't mind Kane.
I like how he hinted, or actually he's come from, I mean, when he first started down there, he had budget issues and culture issues. Well, kind of what we have going on here.
One of the things I do, and you'll hear everyone with the mic, but my practice in interviewing over the years is I always try to sum it up in just some bullet points. So for me, for what it's worth, Gary came through to me as very positive, very optimistic. I was encouraged by that. I got a good vibe from him. It's very passionate. It's very encouraging. What Tony just said, the way I phrased it was, he's seen this movie before. He's lived some of the issues we're dealing with, and that's, I don't want to say encouraging, it's reassuring, I guess. He's clearly competent, capable. He has a large level of support. I don't think I have to tell you guys, we've heard from a lot of people, which has been nice. And he's certainly committed to the role, all of which I'm very encouraged about.
To build on your good vibe point, I've had experiences in the past where people have that level of charisma, that level of positivity, and you're always wondering, okay, is it authentic? I felt very authentic. I felt it was just his personality. It's not an act.
Right.
He's not posing or pointing to the camera. That's who he is.
Yeah, I'll capitalize on that further as far as being genuine. Anybody that goes out of their way to send a handwritten note daily, to make sure that people know what he's thinking, that really speaks a lot about a human being.
I thought that he's a huge academy fan.
He did a little homework too. I was impressed with, not that he's made up his mind on anything, but he's done a little homework on that.
And he wants to bring something to his current district.
Already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Independent of this position being open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he had a fantastic answer to number 5. That what are the elements you would need to alter? He did a great job of saying, he didn't explicitly say, I don't know, but he said, it's not for me to alter at this point, but ask good questions and study and listen to the experts who we have already. But I really liked his part about empowering principals who are driving the buildings to really speak.
The other part of number 5, when he, I loved when he said that you could use the phrase, I wonder. It's not a combative way to have a conversation, it's a collaborative way to have a conversation. And I really liked that.
To move to the next one, question 6, I love how he said problems are opportunities. I don't want anyone here that's going to shy away from anything. We got no problem.
On number 7, I he talked a lot about empowering his leaders, making sure that his cabinet has a voice. I just quote him, he said, "We make really good leaders." And it's not about me, it's about the together.
I love the, I guess we're going in order of the questions here, but in number 8, his admission that he thought as a building principal that he had a pretty good grasp on school finances. So you think you know something and you don't. And his self-awareness to ask people and find mentors and find experts. The resourcefulness to me really rung a bell.
Yeah. When he didn't know the answers, he went for help.
Yep. Yep.
I really kind of liked his weekends. Loves being everywhere, or being at everything. That's kind of how I am.
Yeah.
That is easier, obviously, in a smaller district, so it's not a concern, but I want to see how that transition would happen for either of them, but in this case here.
This is just an observation of his background, in that I think for the last 20 years or more, with Oslin, McBroom, and Dr. Thompson, that all of our superintendents have had secondary background. And he has elementary background, which for me could offer a fresh perspective, a new set of eyes, just something that's a little bit different than what we've had here. Not that it's better or worse, just different.
I liked his answer on number 12, the no-win situation. So he had to release, a high-ranking employee. It's a difficult situation, but you can't shy away from it. With the situation we're in now, there may be some employees that will come into question.
Yeah, and I love that his guiding principle there was what it always should be, right? What is best for the kids in the district was his North Star, it seemed like, in every decision.
I like when he said, for his biggest strength, that he is a teacher, that he's just always been a teacher. And I like that, because in this role, it's not so much about being, deep diving into every aspect of everything. It's about being a teacher and guiding those around you to be the best they can be. I will echo Reggie's sentiment of, you just get a good vibe. You just, he's. When he says that he can, day by day, inspire and build trust, I believe him.
I think it's a good word. He's very believable. Genuine, as you said.
Genuine.
How do you not like a guy that speaks highly of his competition?
Yep.
Not to mention, he did ask us a tough question.
He did.
He did.
So he's willing to ask tough questions.
That Ron, I've had good fortune to speak to him twice, both times for almost an hour. And both times I hung up the phone with him, and when he walked out of the room, it's more energized now than when I started. He's got that kind of magic to him that, yeah.
I like that, not to go back, but on number 3, you know, the first 90 days, the whole thing was all about being genuine and getting the staff to be able to say that they are in fact behind them, because really nobody does it alone. And if he doesn't have the staff, he's not going to have anything but trouble. So the fact that he recognizes he has to have the team, and that's where the energy is going to go, is, I think that's important.
Anytime you make a hire, you never know exactly how things are going to pan out. You do your best to examine and interview and project. A lot of his answers that I enjoyed, and I've already commented positively about, I find them very qualitative in nature. And that's not a bad thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is that, like for the other candidate, like anybody you hire, the proof's in the pudding. He interviews very well. He interviews very well, to his credit. He says a lot of good things. I genuinely believe him, and I have no reason to doubt that these are the experiences he had. But the proof's in the pudding. The answers were very qualitative as opposed to concrete in some cases. We have to see it in action. That's the nature of hiring. That's what I'll be looking for if we make that choice.
That covers Gary pretty well.
Yeah, are we okay to move on?
Yep.
All right. Mr. Redmond.
Well, I'll do my
Okay.
little summation again for what it's worth. I really like, I did not have a chance to digest it. I don't know if you guys have, but I sat here during the break and just took a quick glance at it. I love this 40-day plan. But I'm a very structured, logical, you guys know that, organized person. I'm all about planning. I've been doing planning my whole life. And so to his credit, he put some real thought into it. I mean, it's day by day, and I'm very impressed with that. Very impressed with that. I think highly competent, and that's good because I said that about the other individual. His experience base, I won't dispute what you said at all, Sean, in terms about the background, but I like the fact he has different roles at different levels, big districts, small districts. I'm encouraged by that. He also has lots of support in terms of the letters of recommendation, so that's good. And I believe he's also committed to the job. I don't think either one of these gentlemen, we have to worry for a moment that they aren't here because they want to be here, they believe in it, and that they're going to give it their best. But again, I feel like we've got a very difficult decision, but a very good one to give, I think.
I think, well, it's first we're going to challenge is focus on the students.
Yep.
You know, I mean, obviously, I'm sure the other candidate thinks that too, but that was the first thing out of his mouth. He said, challenge. I think we have lost, not we lost focus, but I think there's been so much going on. We need to get back to that. It is the students that come to are the number one priority here.
Yeah, I'd like to, Rick said it kind of about yourself as well, but I mean, he had a plan for that. His second question on challenges was the grade shift and all of the, I call them the rapids in the river right there, are coming up in the next 13 to 18 months. And his word that he used for that was planning. And I think the next word was process, right? I mean, it was, let's be methodical, let's think ahead, let's figure out who to engage, not just, okay, it's gonna happen.
And that's how he actually answers almost every question. Very methodical.
I like that he referenced a 5-year plan. You know, we have our, I think, 3-year horizon, but as people just referenced, we've been focused on the day-to-day now for a little while, and everything's all about getting through the fall of 18, or getting to the fall of 18. Let's start looking past that.
I really appreciated when he said it twice, I have no Redmond plan. You know, it's about immersing himself. He said, I want to immerse myself here and listen. I really appreciate that.
Question number 3.
I think they joked that he's relocating on Tuesday.
Well, it's what he said, joked. I mean, he didn't talk as much about culture and culture building, but you could see by his nature, his self-deprecating nature, his engaging. I think I looked around a few times and we were all kind of chuckling, and enjoying the conversation. He's got that affable style to him. I don't know if anybody else thought the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And to distinguish what I said about Gary being more qualitative in his answers, I thought Mike was a little bit more quantitative, meaning it was more factual, it was more planful, et cetera. And that's not good or bad, it's just a difference in styles. And we'll ultimately have to determine whether one's better than the other, or can they both do it, and that's just the way they answer the questions, and that's very likely the case.
And like with the, with his write-up, it's 40 days. He's not dodging the question. He's like, no, I'm not looking past the 40 days, really. 5 year, yes, a big picture, but I mean, in the 90 days, he's just saying, figure it out now, then we adjust.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you did say that the next 50 days would be based on how the first, what happens in the 40.
Very first thing I wrote down was humor. It's a little bit of the humor side to it, which I appreciate. And then one thing he said in question 12, you have to do what you believe in. And that really struck a chord with me. Because that probably leans itself to some integrity there.
I loved his answer on the, when Sean asked the follow-up. I'm an HR guy, and I think this probably resonates with Keith. The write the feedback down for the discussion to guide the conversation so you don't leave there going, boy, was that a corrective action discussion, or am I doing great? It's, you stay focused on the behavior change and the improvement needs. I love that.
He also said counsel them out of the profession, which I thought was a great way, because there's amazing teachers here, and everywhere. But every once in a while, it's maybe not the right profession, and maybe there's a light that it can be changed into a positive for individuals. And
I think to that point, a good leader is going to recognize that coaching somebody up or coaching somebody out, they're both very valid avenues, and one need not be a negative. It could be a relief, quite frankly, for everybody involved, if it's mutually beneficial. So, yeah, I agree. I like that answer.
I thought that was an extremely strong answer. If you've been in a leadership position and you found yourself, as probably many of us have, having to do that, it's difficult, it's not fun, but it's oftentimes the right thing to do for the individual and certainly perhaps for the organization. So in this case, for the kids, for the staff, for the district, the community. Very strong answer.
I did like the school finance question on 8, where he indicated that he didn't have a full-time staff. There were people that were coming in to do different components, and as a result, he would be the individual that had to roll up his sleeves and actually dig in and get involved in that stuff. And somebody that has played or made a sausage, they can appreciate it a lot more than maybe somebody that hasn't. So I like that.
He certainly knows Todd's models that we're implementing here too.
I think that kind of goes along with how he can, smaller school, he can delegate. So he delegates that certain days of the week, and then he also needs to take it back. So it's, he's still got his hands on it, but he's also off.
To that point, I loved his answer for number 7, the wearing many hats, and how would he adjust to all of a sudden having a building full of people who are doing, things that he's doing, and how he referenced, he's excited by that because he's excited to not just to delegate, but to have expertise being brought to the table beyond what he has as essentially a one-man cabinet right now.
number 6, the question was the differences in their districts, in his current district and ours. And one of the things he said in there that really struck me was there needs to be a synergy between the community and the schools. And I think that's a powerful statement.
I like the fact that he recognizes when it comes to the academies that it's all about the resources now to do it right. He acknowledges that the heavy lifting, a lot of the heavy lifting is already done. I think that's important because from a cabinet perspective, cabinet probably isn't going to want somebody to come in and try to redesign the thing, from the ground up. So that's important.
I loved his answer to Tony's strength and weakness question. In developing people, what more can you ask for in a leader? and then the weakness of the, and he recognized that he's been working on it. But I like a little impatience, right? But he's learned that you can't get too far. How was his? You can't be over the next hill so nobody can see you anymore. I thought that was very self-aware. And maybe it's a lesson that he learned the hard way a few times.
I did, when I peeked through here, the similar quote, both candidates both had that quote about, one said culture eats strategy, one said culture eats process or practice. Completely, they both understand how important culture is. That's good to know.
Well, I mean, let's face it, they are very similar.
Yes.
I liked his international experience. I've got a good friend who's taught in various parts of the world, and it was only for a couple of years, but I mean, talk about being a citizen of the world and understanding how things are done in different parts of the world. Again, it was a long time ago, it was only for a couple of years, but still, it's an interesting perspective.
Something I didn't say about Gary, but I'm going to say about both of them. As I think about it, you made me think of that. Both of them spoke about their spouses being in education.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I like that is not just because they're in education, it's because I think it keeps them grounded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, their dinner table conversations and their driving to the cabin, I think one of them said, is around this. So they're constantly learning, they're constantly getting feedback from someone else who's living in the trenches and doing it. I found that very reassuring. It's not a mandatory thing, it's not a requirement, but I thought that was very good that both of them had that. That's interesting.
Well, I will say that my inbox has been, well, at least the last 2 days, it was really a happy place to be. It really was. The people who have worked with these two individuals in the past, or who know them, or sometimes it's a community member that that used to be a parent of a teacher, or that he taught their kid, or just it's been fantastic reading how well respected and admired they are in their respective circles.
I've got a fun task for the weekend,
Yeah.
but a very, very important decision. I feel like we're in a great position where we have two candidates who both look outstanding, and I think they both reference that they fit what we need right now. So I think we're in a good position, but it's not going to make picking just one of the two any easier. And I'm looking forward to hearing feedback from the public at large, from our staff. I know that our cabinet and principals were able to meet with both of them today. Looking forward to having probably many conversations with people who've met with them, or those who've done research and can weigh in. Looking forward to hearing from multiple points of view.
Can I ask that question perhaps of Sean? I don't know if you've got to this point or not, but I wrote that note to myself. How can we perhaps get some sort of a summation of the feedback from the discussions that were had today? Because I think that would be insightful to us. Of course, I've got the handicap, so I'm not saying I may get it because I'm going out of the country, but for the benefit of the board, I think it'd be important if we got that somehow. Is there a plan to obtain that?
I don't know what you're asking.
The meetings that happened today.
Oh,
feedback
the
from-
feedback from today,
Yeah.
I requested that every individual who met with them today, you're talking about the principals and the...
Yes.
That they do a simultaneous email school board so that we all get the feedback at the same time.
Very, so we're going to be getting information.
We should be getting, correct, Keith? We
Right.
should be getting emails from,
Okay.
Kevin was in with the principals, I was in with Kevin, and we all got that message, and I said, you could do it after this morning's meeting, or if you're gonna attend both, after tonight, and they could get that link and give you their observations and thoughts.
my request was that a link was sent out to all of them, that they could just click here, and it would email all 7 of us simultaneously.
So will we get
That was sent out.
two
Okay, thank you.
documents from two different groups, or will we get
No,
multiple documents?
No,
No.
Individual.
Individual, okay.
individuals will be emailing us with their
Yeah,
thoughts.
we did not talk about
Okay.
in our groups.
And I would say that certainly if email is a little little more formal and wanted to have calls, and I think all of our phone numbers are available on the website. I'd love to meet for coffee or whatnot with anybody who has feedback. We would love to hear from, I would love to hear from the professionals. And so, yeah.
Would it be inappropriate to ask our cabinet that's here if they could provide any insight? Is that allowable?
I suppose it's allowable. I don't know whether people are prepared to do it.
I know, put you on the spot, but I figure if we're already here, they want to talk.
Oh.
Okay.
We could wait.
Well, if you want to. I'm good. I'll use the link.
Okay.
Dave has to put charts and graphs in.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to add some data.
Is that what you're saying? A matrix or two?
But I don't want to speak for anybody else. No good?
The same.
That's fine. That way they have a chance to think through.
Yeah, reflect themselves too.
Yeah.
That's a nice benefit of doing this on a Thursday and having till Monday, is to be able to get all that feedback and actually even us monitor it, and we're not making a rushed decision. So good call on that. Chair, personality.
I would say that's one of the points. I would say one point maybe for scheduling for next Monday, I would expect there'll probably be more than a 15-minute discussion about this.
We will take as long as we need to take.
Yeah.
It's on the agenda for 15 minutes. So.
We've been known to go long enough.
Yeah, so. All right.
Keith, anything process-wise, the background check, anything that you'd want to share with the public?
Well, I mean, so we did the formal background checks required by the state of Minnesota. We actually exceed by quite a few more steps beyond that. So we do really deep background checks here, and Sean was in talking to me about this process tonight, and we looked at the that don't even have speeding tickets on their background checks, so there's nothing there. So they were both very, very clean. So yeah, nothing in terms of that. In terms of just sharing with, I think that my experience is the same as you guys have gotten, that when you have a process like this, people do reach out and give you information, so information flows. And yeah, that's really fantastic that it's really overwhelmingly positive. It's not always on every search that I've been involved in, so you could get both, but I'm glad you get the that makes the decision easier. And I mean, it's tougher and easier because it looks like you have two really good people that you can choose from.
Yeah, I will say, hats off to the personnel committee. I don't know what your vetting process completely look like, but you got two really, really, really strong people that we're considering, so thank you for all the time you guys put in.
Thank you.
I think our chair with us, in many ways, including hours spent and invested in this great work.
Thank you.
Historically, after we've done interviews, we've passed this back to HR. Can we keep these for the weekend so that, or no?
You don't want to?
Oh, well, I trust you guys.
I think normally we do, because we don't want that information to get out
Can I keep this then and
publicly.
read?
But, well, now I'm just going to go the other way. This is all public already. So
Okay.
I think you can do it.
Oh, okay. Thank
I
you.
mean, typically in an interview, we're having, like, for example, mine, that's not public, so you wouldn't want to be having around, but these guys are public. In fact, we even put summations of things out there, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you. That would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, any other?
No, just procedurally, since I will not be here on Monday, I'm going to take some time to reflect on any additional thoughts, and if I have any, I'm going to funnel them through chair, personnel lady, whatever you call her, Sean. Before Monday night.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for that.
All right, anything else, Keith?
I think so. You covered it.
Anything else, John? Anything we need to know to prepare for Monday? Just do our homework?
Do your homework. No, and I would like to make one more ask of our staff and our community. If you're watching, we would love to know your thoughts. It's important to us.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special session.
Yes, please.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.